There's a generation everyone ignores when talking about money. Not boomers hoarding real estate, not millennials drowning in debt, not Gen Z chasing crypto. Generation X, born 1965 to 1980, their money habits seem completely insane until you understand what shattered their financial worldview forever. Picture someone with 6 figures in savings who drives a 15-year-old car. They'll drop $1,000 on Taylor Swift tickets, then clip grocery coupons. They've built more wealth than millennials, but act perpetually broke. They're your coworker who quietly amassed a fortune, yet behaves like they're one paycheck from disaster. What broke their brains? And why does their seemingly contradictory relationship with money actually make perfect sense? Here's the moment that changed everything. You're a Gen X kid in the early 80s watching your parents live the American dream in real time. Dad works the same job for decades, same company, same steady paycheck every 2 weeks. The bank teller knows him by name. Mom balances the checkbook religiously every month. The savings account pays actual interest, like real money just for keeping money there. The pension is rock solid. The mortgage will be paid off in 12 years. Right on schedule. Everything follows a predictable pattern. The formula is beautifully simple. Work hard, save consistently, retire comfortably. It's not just a plan. It's a guarantee written into the fabric of American life. This isn't hoping things work out. This is watching a system that actually delivers on its promises. Your parents aren't lucky. They're following a roadmap that works for everyone who applies themselves. Study hard, get a good job, buy a house, max out retirement contributions. The system rewards people who play by the rules. Then 2008 happens. But it's not just 2008. That's when everything collapsed simultaneously. Gen X had been watching the foundation crack for years. They followed every rule perfectly, studied hard, got good jobs, bought houses in good neighborhoods, maxed out retirement contributions, built emergency funds. They did everything their parents taught them, everything financial experts recommended, everything society promised would lead to security. And they watched it all evaporate overnight. Retirement funds cut in half. Home values collapsed so fast it made your head spin. Companies that promised lifetime employment, the same companies their parents retired from comfortably, started mass layoffs without warning. 20-year employees walked out with cardboard boxes and severance packages that barely covered a month's expenses. The formula wasn't just wrong. It was a systematic lie told to an entire generation. That betrayal rewired their relationship with money forever. Every financial decision they make traces back to that moment when they realized the game was rigged. Here's what's fascinating about Gen X financial behavior today. They're simultaneously the most terrified about retirement and the most disciplined savers. 70% say they're genuinely anxious about their financial future. But they also have the second highest 401k contribution rates of any generation. Think about how psychologically exhausting that must be. They don't believe the system works, but they participate anyway because what other option exists? They contribute to retirement accounts while assuming those accounts might vanish. They buy stocks while expecting crashes. They save money while preparing for currency devaluation. Psychologists call this defensive pessimism. Assume everything will fail, prepare obsessively for disaster, maybe survive when it inevitably does. It's not a sustainable mindset for most people, but for Gen X, it's become second nature. And their paranoia isn't irrational when you look at their lived experience. They graduated college into recessions. They watched secure pensions disappear across entire industries. They bought homes right before market crashes destroyed property values. They entered peak earning years during the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. They're not pessimists. They're realists with exceptional pattern recognition. Let's talk about something Gen X invented decades before millennials made it trendy: the side hustle. Federal Reserve data shows they have higher self-employment and secondary income rates than any other generation. But here's the key difference: they keep their day jobs. This isn't about chasing passion projects or escaping corporate life. They're not trying to quit the 9-to-5 to live their dreams. They're building financial escape routes while keeping the main exit open. Your Gen X coworker isn't doing freelance graphic design because they love creativity. They're doing it because they watched loyal employees get walked out with cardboard boxes after 20 years of dedicated service. That image burned into every Gen X brain. Never, ever depend on one income source, not because they're naturally entrepreneurial, because they're terrified of institutional betrayal happening again. They have the Etsy shop and the consulting gig and the rental property. It's not ambition driving these decisions. It's insurance against systematic failure. They're diversifying income streams like a hedge fund manager diversifies investments. Here's something that completely confuses modern marketers. Gen X will job hop ruthlessly without a second thought, but they show bizarre loyalty to brands from their youth. They'll quit Fortune 500 companies via email, but drive across town for the coffee shop where the owner remembers their order. Adobe Research found Gen X is 34% more likely than millennials to stick with brands from their youth, even when significantly cheaper alternatives exist. They'll abandon corporate employers instantly, but remain devoted to products and services that haven't disappointed them. The psychology makes perfect sense when you think about it. Institutions betrayed them systematically and repeatedly. When people disappoint you, at least you can have a conversation about it. When a corporation destroys your financial security, you get a severance check and a form letter. They're still buying Levi's jeans and listening to the same bands and using brands they loved in high school, not because they're stuck in the past, but because those things didn't lie to them about fundamental realities. Now here's where Gen X gets really fascinating. They save obsessively and maintain enormous emergency funds, but they also pioneered what we now call experience spending. Eventbrite data shows they drop about $3,000 annually on concerts, travel, and live events, more than any other generation in actual dollars. Financially paranoid and experientially extravagant simultaneously. This seems contradictory until you realize it's the exact same psychology driving both behaviors. They save because systems can't be trusted. Markets crash without warning. Companies fail overnight. Pensions vanish into accounting fraud. But they spend heavily on experiences because stuff can't be trusted either. Houses go underwater and become financial anchors. Cars lose value the moment you drive them off the lot. Possessions become worthless when the economy tanks or your situation changes. But that incredible Pearl Jam concert from 1994, nobody can repossess that memory. Your amazing trip to Europe can't lose value in a market crash. The skills you learned backpacking through Southeast Asia don't disappear when your employer downsizes. Experiences provide better return on investment than material goods in a fundamentally unstable economy. The bank can't foreclose on memories. You can't lose your personal growth in a recession. It's actually brilliant financial thinking when you understand their framework. In a world where traditional assets prove unreliable, investing in yourself and your experiences becomes the most rational strategy. Here's their complicated relationship with financial advisors. They desperately want professional guidance, but refuse to depend completely on experts. Research from Cerulli Associates shows they're the least likely generation to use traditional financial advisory services, preferring to research and manage everything themselves. But they're also the most anxious about whether they're making correct decisions. They don't want help, but they're terrified of messing up their financial future through ignorance or bad timing. Gen X came of age when you could actually learn complex topics from books and figure sophisticated things out independently. They're the last generation that genuinely believes comprehensive self-education is possible and effective. So they read financial books obsessively, build elaborate spreadsheets tracking every expense, manage their own investment portfolios through multiple platforms. But they also watch financial experts destroy their parents' retirement security through bad advice and self-serving recommendations. The solution? They'll educate themselves thoroughly, verify every decision through multiple independent sources, and trust no one's advice without doing extensive homework first. They want professional level knowledge without professional level dependency. It's not arrogance or stubbornness. It's sophisticated self-defense based on watching experts fail catastrophically when it mattered most. Here's a statistic that surprises people. According to Experian, Gen X carries the highest total debt load of any generation. But dig deeper and you discover they're also the most strategic about debt management. They'll comfortably take a $400,000 mortgage, but absolutely refuse to carry credit card balances. What's the difference? Control and predictability. A mortgage has clear rules, fixed payment amount, definite timeline, predictable interest calculations. You can map the entire debt life cycle to completion before you sign anything. Credit card debt is financial quicksand that expands without boundaries. Minimum payments that never reduce principal. Interest rates that change at the company's discretion. Payment terms designed to maximize long-term extraction rather than debt resolution. Gen X watched this destroy their parents' financial stability throughout the 80s and 90s. They learned the lesson viscerally. Debt isn't inherently dangerous, but unpredictable debt will kill you slowly. They'll strategically leverage debt for appreciating assets, real estate investments, business expansion, education that increases earning capacity. But buying couches on credit or charging vacations, that's the debt that compounds into financial disaster, and they know exactly how that story ends. The lesson wasn't never borrow money. The lesson was only borrow what you can map to successful completion. Here's something that seems completely outdated, but reveals sophisticated risk management thinking. 61% of Gen X maintains physical paper records of important documents compared to just 34% of millennials. They're not technologically illiterate. Remember, they built the internet infrastructure we all use today, but they also lived through multiple system failures, database crashes, and digital promises that evaporated without warning. They trust technology to work correctly most of the time. They trust paper to work all of the time, regardless of power outages, server failures, or corporate policy changes. Digital banking app? Absolutely. Paper statements mailed monthly? Also absolutely. Cloud storage for convenience? Sure. Fireproof safe with physical backups? Obviously necessary. This isn't paranoia or resistance to progress. It's redundancy by design, engineered by people who understand that single points of failure eventually fail. It seems excessive until you've lived through multiple systematic breakdowns where people lost access to critical information precisely when they needed it most. Remember that 10-year-old kid in the bank in 1983, watching their father deposit his steady paycheck, learning that hard work equals security? They learned the lesson completely. They also learned the system can rewrite the rules whenever powerful people decide it's profitable. So now they play the game with full awareness that it's rigged against them. They participate because they have to, but they never stop building backup plans for when the next betrayal arrives. Your money habits aren't random behavioral quirks. They're sophisticated responses to the economic world that shaped your fundamental assumptions about how financial systems actually work. And honestly, when you understand what Gen X survived and how they adapted, their responses make perfect sense. They might be the most financially realistic generation in American history. Drop a comment about money behaviors you've noticed in yourself or people around you. Subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology behind financial decisions. Understanding why we make money choices is the first step toward making better ones.